What will your game look like in 4 months when camp starts?
I feel like my big focus is going into summer. Really just getting light on my feet, moving my feet faster, laterally, being able to move quicker in the ball screen game. I want to work on my touch around the rim, being able to catch that ball in the pocket and, make moves and get to the rim and score efficiently. Really knock down the three ball at a high level. Make sure my shot's consistent and, having the same shot every time and, really, being physical and getting stronger. And, I just want to, everything I've been doing, these past, 2 months, the second half of the season, really just trying to take everything and just take it to the next level.
Do you know if you're going to play summer league?
I'm not sure yet. Really, still talking about it, and we're still figuring that out.
Do you want to?
I love basketball, so I want to play whenever I can.
What was the biggest challenge for you in your first season, and how do you think you
I feel like, in the middle of the season, I let, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. I had a great start. I feel like, I was late, and, I put it on myself that, I wasn't in shape in the middle of the season after I got hurt. And, I feel like that's when, things were going downhill and, I was out of shape. And after that, really locked in. And second half of the season was, all uphill and, really just took time and focused on my body and everything I needed to do to, make sure I was getting, being able to play 30 minutes a night. And, I was able to do that.
Now that you've gone through it for a whole year, would you say the jump from college to the NBA is harder than you thought it was going to be or about what you expected?
I feel like harder. You definitely don't practice as much as you do in college, but, you're playing games every single night and, it's a lot up and down. And, that jump, mentally is, I feel like, the biggest thing.
One of the things DA said was that even though he got injured, he really enjoyed watching how you played out there. Just what does it mean to hear something like that from him? He's in your position group. He could easily have not. He wasn't even asked about you. He was just asked about being injured and if it was a bummer. And he said he really liked watching you.
Yeah, DA is one of a kind. I couldn't be grateful for someone to look up. No one better to look up to. DA is. He's always got great energy, and he's always showing me support, giving me tips. If I'm not playing the way I should be, he'll let me know. But if I'm playing well and doing what I have to do, and he's gonna be my biggest supporter. And I really appreciate that, and he's someone I look up to.
DC, with the year under your belt now, when you go into the summer, what do you look at and go, these are the pillars I kind of need to focus on?
Just getting quicker. Knocking down the three ball, working on my touch, and really just working on the defense, protecting the rim, and working in that ball screen game.
What was your reaction to the news about Chauncey's new deal?
I was really excited. I feel like Chauncey has put a lot of time and a lot of work into get this organization to where it is, and how this team is finished off playing, and I love playing for him, and I'm really excited to for the future and to see what the next couple of years bring.
You won some national titles at college, and I assume those teams had really good team chemistry. Do you see this team developing in that direction?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this locker room is a lot of fun. I feel like there's no guy that's left out or is not included in. Everyone is best friends. Everyone's having fun together. Pregame in the hallway and in the locker room. In the weight room, everything. All these guys connect. We all get to get along together, and it's a special group.
To go from winning at historic rates in college to having to then, lose some games early on and then turn it around, what was that like for you?
I feel like, when I got drafted here, I knew that it was an organization that was, developing and was going to take time to develop. And, I just wanted to be a part of, something special. And, I know it's going to take time. And, obviously, I love to win and I'm, a big competitor. But, I'm going to go out there every night and give everything I have. And, I know it's going to take time to develop and get to where we want to be. But, I definitely see it.